a 6-year-old American boy. Never spoke about past lives, never mentioned death. Just a normal kid who loved his red toy truck. Then, kidney failure kills him. Dead at 14:30 on a Monday. 13 months later, same parents, a new baby is born. Exactly 14:30. Same brown eyes, same birthmark, star-shaped mark on the left arm, exact same spot. When the baby turns 2, he points at a hospital he's never visited. "Mommy, I had pain here." When he turns 3, he says, "Mommy, when I died, I saw you crying." A child describing his own death in a life that ended before he was born. This is Michael Reynolds, the boy who died and returned, the documented case that proves consciousness survives. Welcome to Reincarnation Chronicles, where we explore verified cases of past life memories that science can't explain. Subscribe if these stories move you. Let's begin. Savannah, Georgia, 1976. A family is living through the worst nightmare any parent can face. Little Michael, only 6 years old, lies in a hospital bed fighting for his life. Acute nephritis, a severe kidney disease ravaging his small body faster than doctors can treat it. Sarah Reynolds, Michael's mother, hasn't slept in 4 days. Her hands tremble as she holds her son's cold, tiny hand. "Baby, Mommy's right here," she whispers, even though Michael can barely open his eyes anymore. His breathing is shallow, labored. Each breath sounds like it might be his last. For a brief moment, Michael's eyes flutter open. He looks at his mother with those big brown eyes, and despite the pain, he manages the faintest smile. Sarah's heart breaks into a million pieces. "Mommy loves you so much, baby. You're so brave," she whispers, her voice cracking. Michael's small fingers squeeze her hand weakly, then relax. The monitor beeps steadily. Beep, beep, beep. Sarah watches the green line tracking her son's heartbeat, praying it never stops. Robert Reynolds, the father, stands at the window. He's a construction foreman, a man who's built buildings with his bare hands, a man who never cried in front of anyone. But today the tears stream down his face without shame. "He's so small, God. Why him?" The question echoes in his mind, unanswered. Looking at his son's frail body connected to all those machines breaks something inside him that can never be repaired. It's a rainy Monday in May when everything changes. The monitors start beeping erratically. Medical staff rush in. Doctors shout orders. Nurses move with practiced urgency. But it's too late. The beeping slows. Beep, beep, beep. Then a long, endless tone. Michael's heart stops beating at 14:30, 2:30 in the afternoon, the exact moment when the school bell would ring for recess. A doctor checks for vital signs, looks at the clock, then at the parents. "I'm sorry, time of death, 14:30. His hand is still warm when Sarah takes it. She feels the warmth slowly fade. Within minutes, his small hand grows cold. Robert punches the wall so hard he fractures 2 bones in his hand. He doesn't even feel the pain. The silence that follows is deafening. Sarah collapses. Her scream echoes through the hospital corridors, a mother's anguish so raw it makes nurses cry. "My baby, my little boy!" She tries to embrace his lifeless body, but Robert has to pull her back gently. His own legs barely support him. 2 orderlies have to help him stay standing. In the days that follow, their house becomes a tomb. Michael's toys remain scattered across the living room floor, exactly where he left them. The red toy truck he loved so much sits by the couch. His bedroom transforms into a silent shrine. Nobody has the courage to touch anything. It would feel like erasing him completely. Sarah wanders through the house like a ghost. She doesn't eat, barely speaks, just cries. Robert tries to be strong, tries to hold the family together, but inside he's shattered into 1,000 pieces. How do you move forward after losing the most precious thing you've ever had? It's their neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, who makes the suggestion. She's an elderly woman who's lived in Savannah her whole life. "Why don't you visit the Pathway Center?" she says one afternoon, bringing over another casserole Sarah won't eat. "There's a woman there, Margaret Anderson. People say she has a special gift. She helps people who are grieving." The Pathway Center. Sarah has never heard of it. But what more could she lose? The pain is so intense that any hope, no matter how small, seems worth grasping. Robert refuses at first. "Sarah, this is grief talking. We can't chase false hope," he says, his voice tired and broken. But Sarah insists. "What if it's not false? What if there's even a 1% chance?" For a week, Robert resists. He's a practical man. He doesn't believe in psychics or mediums. But watching Sarah cry herself to sleep every night slowly breaks down his walls. Finally, he gives in. "Fine, we'll go. But when this woman says generic things, we're leaving." On the drive to the Pathway Center, Robert grips the steering wheel tightly. "Psychics prey on desperate people, Sarah. Don't get your hopes up." Sarah says nothing. She just stares out the window, silently praying for anything that might ease this unbearable pain. 5 days after Michael's funeral, they arrive at the old Victorian house on Abercorn Street in the historic district. The building is simple but welcoming, with a gate that's always open, a symbol that everyone is welcome here. Margaret Anderson, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a warm smile, greets them personally. There's something special about her, a peace that seems to radiate from her presence, a serenity that calms even the most wounded hearts. "Welcome," Margaret says, leading them to a private room. "I know you've lost your little boy." The words come with such genuine compassion that Sarah immediately feels understood. Robert, skeptical by nature, watches everything with suspicion. How could a stranger help them with pain this deep? But as Margaret speaks about the continuity of life and eternal love, something in his chest begins to warm. "Death is not the end," Margaret explains softly. "What we call death is simply a change of state. Do you think a love as pure as yours for Michael would simply disappear? Love is the only force capable of connecting worlds." Sarah grips her husband's hand tightly. For the first time in days, she feels a tiny spark of hope. "But he was so young. Where is he now?" Her voice breaks. Margaret closes her eyes for several moments, as if listening to something nobody else can hear. "He's well, very well. And he wants me to tell you he loves you very much." She pauses. "He's showing me a red truck. Does that mean something to you?" The couple exchanges shocked glances. The red truck was Michael's favorite toy. He carried it everywhere. How could she possibly know that? They never mentioned it. But what Margaret says next leaves them completely speechless. There's something more, something very special. And then she makes a revelation that will change their lives forever. Margaret remains silent for long minutes, eyes closed, as if receiving a very important message. The room feels charged with a different energy, almost tangible. You can feel it on your skin. "Michael is here with us right now," she finally says, her voice soft but firm. "He wants you to know that his passing wasn't random. There was a greater purpose." Sarah feels chills run down her entire body. Robert, despite his skepticism, senses that something extraordinary is happening, something beyond normal explanation. "He's showing me images," Margaret continues. "You tried to have other children before him, didn't you?" The couple confirms. They had lost 2 pregnancies before Michael was born. "Michael chose you as his parents," Margaret says. "But his mission on Earth was short this time. He came to teach you about unconditional love, to prepare the way for something greater." "What does that mean?" Robert asks, his voice trembling. Margaret opens her eyes and looks directly at Sarah. "It means he's coming back. Not today, not tomorrow, but he will return to you." The silence that follows is profound. Sarah feels her heart racing. "What do you mean, coming back?" "The bond of love that connects you is so strong that Michael has chosen to return. He will be your son again," Margaret explains with absolute conviction. Robert stands up abruptly. "That's impossible. People don't come back from the dead." "They don't come back from the dead," Margaret agrees calmly. "But they are reborn. Reincarnation is a natural law of the universe, and when there's a very deep love, souls reunite." Sarah begins to cry, but this time they are not just tears of pain. There's hope mixed in. "How will I know it's him?" Margaret smiles. "You'll know. Love recognizes love. Michael will be physically identical, the same eyes, the same smile, the same marks on his body, and you'll feel it in your heart that it's him." "When?" Sarah asks, almost whispering. "Soon. Very soon. Prepare your hearts, because a miracle is on its way." But the couple had no idea that this prophecy would be fulfilled in a way even more extraordinary than they could dream. The months that follow are an emotional roller coaster for Sarah and Robert. Some days, hope pulses strong in their chests. Other days, disbelief and pain return with full force. "Are we fooling ourselves?" Robert questions on sleepless nights. "Is this just a way of dealing with loss? Isn't this denial dressed up as spirituality?" Sarah, meanwhile, begins dreaming about Michael almost every night. In the dreams, he appears as a healthy boy, smiling, running toward her. "Mommy, I'm coming back," he always says, repeating the same phrase. Each time she wakes up, the dreams feel more real than reality itself. 3 months after the meeting at the Pathway Center, something unexpected happens. Sarah starts experiencing morning sickness, fatigue, symptoms she knows very well. "Robert, I think I'm pregnant," she announces one September morning, holding a pharmacy test with trembling hands. The result is positive. Robert is shocked. They weren't trying to have another child. In fact, they thought it would be a betrayal of Michael's memory. "How did this happen?" he asks, confused. "What if it's him?" Sarah whispers, her eyes shining. "What if it's our Michael coming back?" Throughout the pregnancy, strange things begin to happen. Sarah doesn't have any of the problems she faced in previous pregnancies. On the contrary, she feels strangely at peace, as if protected by an invisible force. At night, when she places her hand on her belly, she feels like the baby responds to her touch in a familiar way. "My love, is that you?" she whispers, and a sensation of warmth takes over her entire body. Robert, initially resistant, begins noticing disturbing coincidences. The pregnancy has exactly the same characteristics as the pregnancy with Michael. The morning sickness stopped in the same week. The baby's movements started in the same period. The cravings are identical. "This can't be coincidence," he murmurs, placing his hand on his wife's belly. At that moment, the baby gives a strong kick, as if responding to the father's presence. The due date is set for June 1977, exactly 13 months after Michael's death. Sarah knows this will be the moment of truth. Will the impossible really happen? June 15th, 1977, dawns sunny in Savannah. Sarah wakes up with strong contractions at 5 a.m. "Robert, it's time," she shouts, feeling a mixture of anxiety and expectation like never before. The rush to the hospital is desperate. Robert drives with sweating hands while Sarah breathes deeply, trying to control the anxiety. "What if it's not him? What if we're creating a fantasy?" she thinks. But there's something different about this labor, a sense of familiarity, as if everything is exactly as it should be. They arrive at the hospital at 6:15 a.m. The nurses wheel Sarah into the delivery room. The contractions intensify. Hours pass in a blur of pain and anticipation. At 2:15 p.m., the nurse checks Sarah's progress. "Almost there," she says encouragingly. Sarah's eyes dart to the clock on the wall. 2:15. 15 minutes until 2:30. Her heart races. At 2:25, the contractions become overwhelming. The doctor positions himself. "All right, Sarah, on the next contraction, I need you to push." Sarah grabs Robert's hand. They both stare at the clock. 2:29. "Robert, look at the time," Sarah whispers between labored breaths. Robert's face goes pale. He squeezes her hand tighter. The doctor says, "Push now, Sarah!" At exactly 2:30 p.m., a baby's cry fills the delivery room. The same time Michael had died. The exact same moment. The silence in the delivery room is absolute when the nurse lifts the baby. She gasps softly. The doctor blinks twice, looking confused. Sarah and Robert are paralyzed. It's Michael. Exactly Michael. The nurse gently cleans the newborn, and as she does, she notices something on the baby's left arm. Her hands freeze. "Doctor," she says quietly, "you need to see this." The doctor approaches, looks at the baby's arm, then quickly flips through the medical chart. His expression shifts from professional calm to visible shock. "This is... medically, we call this a birthmark recurrence in siblings, but this exact shape, this exact location..." He trails off, unable to finish the sentence. The same expressive brown eyes, the same face shape, even the same small birthmark on his left arm. A star-shaped mark that Michael had in the exact same location. "My God," Robert whispers, tears rolling freely down his face. "It's him. It's really him." Sarah can't stop crying. When she takes the baby in her arms, he immediately stops crying and looks into her eyes in a way she recognizes instantly. It's her Michael's gaze. Sweet, intelligent, full of love. "Welcome back, my love," she whispers, kissing the baby's soft forehead. The news spreads rapidly through family and friends. Some react with skepticism, others with fascination, but everyone who sees the baby is impressed by the striking physical resemblance. The doctors can't explain it. It's genetically possible, but statistically almost impossible for two children from the same couple to be so identical, comments the pediatrician, shaking his head in disbelief. They decide to name him Matthew, gift of God in Hebrew. But deep down, everyone knows who he really is. In the first months, the evidence only increases. Matthew cries only when hungry or sleepy, exactly like Michael. He smiles the same way, makes the same gestures with his little hands, sleeps in the same position, on his side with his hand under his face. But what happens when Matthew turns 2 years old leaves the entire family speechless. Matthew grows like a normal child, healthy and happy, but as he approaches 2 years old, he begins demonstrating behaviors that leave Sarah and Robert both intrigued and deeply moved. The first strange thing happens when Matthew is playing in the living room. He picks up a yellow toy car, but stops, shakes his head, and goes searching for something. He rummages through the toy box until he finds a red truck identical to the one Michael adored. "This one," he says, smiling with satisfaction. It's one of the first words he pronounces clearly. Sarah feels a chill run down her spine. How does Matthew know about the red truck? They never mentioned this specific preference of Michael's. They kept Michael's old toys boxed away in the attic. Matthew has never seen them. But this is only the beginning. Matthew starts having strange memories. One day, while they're driving past the hospital where Michael died, the little boy points at the building and says, "Mommy, pain here?" Robert slams on the brakes. "He's never been to that hospital," he murmurs to his wife, his hands shaking on the steering wheel. The coincidences multiply. Matthew is afraid of the same thing Michael feared, thunderstorms. But curiously, he didn't learn this fear from anyone. He was simply born with it. Every time a storm approaches, he runs to his mother's lap, exactly like his brother used to do. His favorite food is the same, spaghetti with tomato sauce. His sleeping position is identical, on his side with his little hand under his face. Even the nightmares are similar. Matthew wakes up screaming about tummy hurts, the same symptom Michael presented before they discovered the nephritis. But the most shocking moment happens on a Sunday afternoon. Sarah is organizing an old photo album when Matthew approaches. He starts flipping through the pages until he stops at a specific photo. "Me," he says, pointing to a picture of Michael at 4 years old, smiling in the backyard. Sarah feels her legs weaken. "No, sweetheart, that's Daddy when he was little," she lies, trying to protect her son from such a complex truth. Matthew shakes his head energetically. "No, me here," he insists, tapping his little finger on the photo. That night, Sarah calls Margaret Anderson. "Margaret, I need to talk to you. Matthew is remembering." "It was expected," Margaret responds calmly. Souls that return through love usually maintain some memories, especially in the early years. It's proof that love conquered death. But what Matthew says at 3 years old shocks even Margaret. Matthew is playing in the garden on a sunny afternoon when Sarah approaches to call him for a snack. It's May, around 4 p.m. The weather is warm and pleasant. Matthew is pushing his red toy truck through the grass, making quiet engine sounds. Suddenly, he stops. He lifts his head and looks directly into his mother's eyes. There's something in his gaze, a maturity beyond his years, that makes Sarah pause. "Mommy," he says softly. Sarah kneels down beside him, still unaware of what's coming. "Yes, sweetheart?" Matthew's small face becomes serious. When I died, I saw you crying. You cried so much. The glass Sarah is holding slips from her hand and shatters on the ground. Her knees buckle. She sits down hard on the grass, unable to breathe. Her hands shake uncontrollably. She tries to speak, but no words come out. Matthew walks over to her and places his tiny hand on her cheek. His touch is gentle, comforting. Don't be sad now, Mommy. I'm here. That night, Sarah tells Robert everything. They sit at the kitchen table until sunrise, holding hands, unable to sleep. Neither knows what to say. The next morning, Sarah calls Margaret Anderson. Her voice trembles as she recounts what Matthew said. The boy stops playing as if it's the most natural thing in the world. I felt sad that Mommy cried, but the angels said I could come back so Mommy would stop crying. Robert, who has just arrived from work, hears the conversation. He approaches slowly, his heart beating wildly. Matthew, do you remember when you were Michael? The boy nods naturally. I was Michael. Now I'm Matthew. But I'm still me, Daddy. The simplicity with which he speaks about such complex subjects is impressive. For Matthew, it's as natural as saying he played at the park yesterday. Why did you come back, son? Sarah asks, trying to control her emotion. Because I love you very, very, very much, Matthew responds, opening his little arms wide. And you were very sad. Jesus said people who love a lot can come back to their family. That week, they decide to take Matthew to meet Margaret Anderson at the Pathway Center. It's important to have guidance on how to handle this unique situation. When they arrive at the Pathway Center, something magical happens. Matthew looks at Margaret and runs toward her, as if he's known her for years. Miss Margaret! He shouts, hugging her. Margaret smiles, but she's surprised. Hello, dear. Do you know me? You told Mommy I was coming back, Matthew responds, as if it's obvious. Margaret gets chills. She's never seen Matthew before. He was born months after that conversation with the grieving parents. During the conversation, Matthew demonstrates knowledge that a 3-year-old shouldn't have. He talks about heaven, about angels, about what it was like before being born again. It's very pretty up there, he explains to Margaret. But I wanted to stay with Mommy, so they let me come back in Mommy's belly again. Margaret is moved. In decades of spiritual work, she's witnessed many phenomena, but this case is special. You have a miracle in your home, she tells the parents. Matthew is living proof that love is eternal. But Matthew has one more revelation that will leave everyone perplexed. At 4 years old, Matthew starts doing something that intrigues the entire family. He draws constantly, but not ordinary children's drawings. They're maps. Maps of places he calls the home from before. Look, Mommy, he says, showing a drawing full of details. This is where I played when I wasn't in your belly yet. The drawings show gardens, houses, people dressed in white, a very bright light in the center. Matthew draws with impressive precision for a child his age. Who are these people? Sarah asks, pointing to figures in the drawings. They're my friends from up there. They take care of children who don't have mommies and daddies, Matthew explains naturally. But the drawing that most impresses the family is one Matthew makes on a Sunday morning. It's the portrait of an elderly man with a white beard, gentle smile, and very kind eyes. Who is this, sweetheart? Robert asks. That's Grandpa Edgar, Matthew responds excitedly. He's the one who said I could come back to you. Sarah and Robert exchange glances. Grandpa Edgar? They don't know any Edgar in the family. That afternoon, they take the drawing to Margaret Anderson. When she sees the paper, her eyes fill with tears. "My God," she whispers, "this is Edgar Casey." Margaret explains that Edgar Casey was one of America's most famous psychics, known for his kindness and dedication to children in the spiritual world. He had passed decades before. "But Matthew has never seen a photo of Edgar Casey," Robert says. "So what?" Matthew retorts, playing on the floor. "I saw him up there." "He's very nice. He said children who die young can come back if Mommy and Daddy need them." Margaret sits in silence for several minutes. Finally, she says, "Matthew, can you tell me more about what Grandpa Edgar said?" Matthew stops playing and looks seriously at Margaret. "He said there are many sad children up there because Mommy and Daddy are very sad down here. So he lets some children come back to make their parents happy again." "And how did you choose to come back to your parents?" Matthew smiles. "I didn't choose. The heart chose. The heart knows where love lives." Those words, coming from a 4-year-old child, deeply touch everyone present. But Matthew still has one final revelation that will change how everyone sees life and death. Matthew has turned 5 years old when the most extraordinary event of this entire incredible story happens. It's a Saturday morning when he wakes up different, more serious, more thoughtful. During breakfast, he looks at his parents with an expression too mature for his age. "Mommy, Daddy, I need to tell you something important." Sarah and Robert stop eating, paying complete attention. "I'm going to forget," Matthew says simply. "Forget what, sweetheart?" "Forget that I was Michael. Forget the home up there. Forget Grandpa Edgar." His voice is calm, but there's a deep sadness in his eyes. "They said that when children grow up, they need to forget so they can live their new life properly." Sarah feels her heart squeeze. "When is this going to happen?" "Soon. Maybe tomorrow, maybe later. But before I forget, I want to tell you everything I remember." And then Matthew tells things that will never be forgotten by the family. He describes details of life after death that no 5-year-old could invent. He talks about how souls recognize each other through love, about how they choose their new families, about how suffering on earth is only temporary. "Up there, there's no sadness," he explains. "But when we love someone very much who stayed here, we feel a nice kind of missing. Then some of us can come back." "Why were you able to come back and other children can't?" Robert asks. Matthew thinks for a moment. "Because you loved very strong. Very strong love makes bridges between worlds." He picks up a paper and starts drawing one last time. A bridge made of light connecting 2 houses. "Look," he says, "this house is me up there. This house is you down here. Love made the bridge so I could come." On Monday morning, Matthew wakes up like a normal 5-year-old child. When Sarah asks about Michael, he looks confused. "Who's Michael, Mommy?" The memories of the previous life have completely erased. Matthew becomes just Matthew, a happy, healthy, loving child, but without memories of who he was before. Sarah cries that day, not from sadness, but from gratitude. She understands that this is natural, necessary. Matthew needs to live his new life without the weight of previous memories. But the miracle had happened. Love had conquered death. And they have 5 years of extraordinary evidence that life continues beyond what our eyes can see. 20 years have passed since that day when Matthew forgot his memories of Michael. Today, he's a 25-year-old young man, a pediatric doctor specializing in treating children with kidney problems. A coincidence that Sarah and Robert never considered random. Matthew grew up being a loving son, intelligent, and with a special sensitivity to help other people. Although he doesn't consciously remember his previous life, there are characteristics that remained. The same gentleness, the same caring way of treating people, the same love for his parents. "Sometimes I have strange dreams," Matthew confessed to his parents in a recent conversation. "I dream I'm in a very white room, surrounded by people dressed in white, who treat me with great affection. I always wake up with a deep sense of peace." Sarah and Robert exchange glances. Some things never change. The family's story became known in Savannah and the surrounding region. Many parents who lost children seek out Sarah looking for comfort and hope. She always shares her experience with love and humility. "I can't promise that all children will return like Matthew returned," she says. "But I can guarantee that love never dies, and that our children, wherever they are, continue loving us." Margaret Anderson, who recently passed to the spiritual world at 100 years old, always considered Matthew's case as one of the most beautiful examples that reincarnation exists and that love is truly the most powerful force in the universe. The Pathway Center continues active, helping thousands of people every year. On the wall at the entrance, there's a photo of young Matthew, next to a plaque that says, "Love builds bridges between worlds." Matthew, who discovered his own story at 18 years old when his parents decided to tell him everything, reacted with impressive serenity. "This explains a lot," he said simply. "I always felt I had a special mission in this life, and I really do." As a pediatric doctor, Matthew has already saved hundreds of children. His colleagues say he has a special intuition, able to diagnose problems that other doctors would take much longer to identify, especially kidney diseases. It's as if he inherently understands what those small bodies are going through. This is one of the most beautiful pieces of evidence ever documented that death is not the end, but simply a transformation. The case of Michael and Matthew teaches us that when we truly love, we create bonds that transcend time and space. Sources for this incredible story: The Two Worlds of Margaret by Dr. Patricia Morrison. Archives of the Pathway Center, Savannah, Georgia. Family testimonies, names altered to preserve privacy. Medical records from Savannah Memorial Hospital. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment sharing your own experiences or reflections about love that transcends death. And don't forget to subscribe to Reincarnation Chronicles for more real stories that challenge our understanding of life and death. Did this move you? Share it with someone who needs to know this story of hope and eternal love.